So if you look at standard business education today, I mean, we're talking about the big MBA programs, graduate schools, the whole curriculum seems geared toward a massive scale.
Right. It's all about multinational corporations, complex corporate finance.
Optimizing global supply chains, all of it. It's really the world of the Fortune 500.
And that focus, while, it's necessary for understanding that formal sector, it creates a truly colossal blind spot for future leaders. Our sources are very clear on this. By only prioritizing the formal economy, business schools are basically ignoring how the majority of the world actually works.
And that reality is, of course, the informal economy. So today we're doing a deep dive to really extract the essential data on the sheer size and the strategic importance of this sector. We want to understand why business education has to sort of urgently integrate this topic to prepare students for a truly global, inclusive economy.
Exactly. Our mission today is pretty simple.
Yeah.
Just to highlight the significance of this often overlooked engine. And for clarity, when we say informal economy, we're talking about economic activities, jobs, enterprises, even workers that are just not covered by formal government regulations.
So no legal protection, no social security nets.
None of it. It's the engine for billions, and its absence from the syllabus is, frankly, becoming an educational liability.
It's really striking how entrenched the status quo is. I mean, business schools design their core curriculum, corporate strategy, financial modeling, as if every single student is destined for a huge, well-established corporation. And this preference, it isn't an accident.
No, not at all. It's systemic. The critique that comes up in the sources is that universities often reflect this preference even in how they hire faculty.
Also.
Well, they'll favor candidates with extensive formal experience in large corporations over someone who has a deep understanding of, say, small business dynamics or local markets, or, crucially, informal enterprise development. The assumption is just that big business experience is more valuable for teaching global leadership.
But if we're saying that global leadership is about understanding global markets, how does this gap immediately hurt the student?
It creates a massive failure to prepare them for reality. I mean, think about the huge number of international students who get their MBA in the West and then go home.
Right.
They're going back to economies where the formal sector is often just a thin layer on top of this massive informal foundation. So if you've only taught them how to optimize a formal supply chain for a company on the NASDAQ, you've fundamentally failed to equip them for their own domestic markets.
So we're talking about regions where the formal rules we teach in the classroom they're the exception, not the norm.
Precisely. And look, this is not a marginal issue. The key figure we really have to internalize is this. In low and middle income countries, 9 out of 10 workers,
9 out of 10,
90%, are employed informally. Small, often unregistered businesses are the absolute backbone. The traditional business school model just doesn't address that operational reality for most of the world.
Okay, so let's move from the critique of the status quo to the sheer overwhelming scale of this sector. We really need to unpack some numbers here that show why ignoring this is strategically just unsound. This is not some fringe activity. This is the workforce.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Globally, over 60% of the world's employed population works informally.
Wow.
Just think about that for a second. 6 out of every 10 people you might pass on the street globally are operating outside those traditional structures of formal employment or registration. So when we talk about global business, we have to center that 60%.
And what are the implications of that? A 60% informal workforce. When a company is designing, say, a new global marketing campaign or trying to enter a new market, if they only analyze the formal labor market or registered GDP, they're missing the engine.
That's the critical insight. If a major corporation tries to enter a market using models designed only for formal Western economies, they're ignoring the primary way goods and services are distributed, consumed, and financed on the ground. They'll misjudge the competition, they will underestimate local resilience, and they'll fail to tailor products to the resourcefulness that's just inherent in these informal systems.
So the informal economy dictates local prices, labor costs,
And often consumer behavior. Absolutely.
We also need to look at who is doing this work, because the sector is crucial for understanding issues of equity and, specific demographic challenges.
That's where the numbers get even more precise. When we look at women in the workforce, 55% of working women globally are employed informally.
Over half.
Yep. And this often translates to roles that are essential but highly vulnerable. Things like domestic work, street vending, or crucial home-based production, like artisanal manufacturing or tailoring. These women are providing essential services, but they lack the legal protections and benefits that formal employment is supposed to offer.
And what does this say about entrepreneurship? I mean, we spend so much time in business school talking about venture capital and disruptive tech, but where does the most widespread self-reliance actually show up?
It shows up right here in what the sources call own account workers. Nearly 47% of informal workers are self-employed individuals running one-person businesses. Often they're survivalist ventures designed just to support their families day to day. And this highlights an incredible foundational level of resourcefulness and ingenuity that is so rarely celebrated or studied in an MBA context.
So when we talk about SMEs, small and medium enterprises in a formal setting, we discuss financing through banks, formal credit. What does the lack of formality mean for financing these own account entrepreneurs?
It means they're largely locked out of formal financing. They have to rely heavily on personal savings, community-based lending, or microfinance, which often comes with much higher interest rates.
Right.
So teaching future leaders about these informal financial systems, or the lack of formal ones, is essential for developing products that can bridge this gap, whether it's inclusive digital finance or tailored credit schemes. We need to shift the mindset from viewing them as just a regulatory problem to recognizing their economic contribution as a foundational driver of livelihoods and poverty reduction.
It's absolutely clear. If you want to be an effective global leader, you have to understand the 60% of the workforce. So let's shift into the strategic arguments. This is where we get into the 5 core imperatives from the research for, making this a mandatory part of the curriculum. These are the specific actionable reasons.
Right. And these 5 points argue that integrating the informal economy isn't just for a sociology elective. It's essential for core business competencies, things like risk mitigation, product development, and achieving genuine sustainability goals.
Okay, let's start with the first one. Preparing students for real-world challenges. If they're not landing in a Fortune 500 company, what operational skills are they missing?
They lack the ability to function where ambiguity is the norm. Understanding informal operations helps future leaders move beyond rigid corporate structures. They learn how to develop inclusive policies that acknowledge unregistered workforces, how to design tailored products that are affordable and accessible, and how to create innovative solutions to support these enterprises without, stifling them with overregulation.
And that flexibility you mentioned, that's key. Formal business models are often just too slow, too rigid for the rapid adaptation you need in informal markets.
Exactly. The formal sector sees informality as a barrier, but it's often a testament to incredible resilience.
Which brings us to the second imperative, which is about social impact, fostering inclusive economic development.
Precisely. When a worker lacks legal protection, access to healthcare, or retirement funds, they exist in a constant state of vulnerability. Education can inspire leaders to design programs that actively promote social equity. We need future policymakers and business leaders who see the dignity in the street vendor and the home producer, and who work to address the systemic inequalities and stigma they face rather than just try to regulate them out of existence.
The third imperative then forces a broader view of entrepreneurship. We need to move beyond just Silicon Valley or high-growth tech startups.
Absolutely. The informal economy provides a masterclass in what you could call survivalist innovation. Students learn about the resourcefulness required to run a small venture on minimal capital, often just to keep a family fed. So by studying informal markets, business schools can expand the definition of innovation. It's not just about scaling rapidly, it's about maintaining stable operations in highly volatile, resource-constrained environments. And that knowledge is valuable anywhere.
That resilience is a business lesson in itself. Okay, number 4 brings us into modern global trends. Urbanization, migration, digitalization. How does the informal sector get entangled with these huge shifts?
It's the meeting point of all of them.
Yeah.
Take digitalization and the gig economy. It has fundamentally blurred the line between formal and informal.
Like a rideshare driver.
Exactly. Someone driving for a rideshare app in a developed country is an informal worker, an own account worker, often without traditional benefits, even though their work is mediated by a massive formal tech platform. If you're teaching the future of work, you have to analyze how urbanization concentrates these informal laborers, how migration flows feed this workforce, and how digital platforms both empower and exploit them.
That's a crucial point. The informal sector is no longer just in developing economies. It's integrated into the biggest tech platforms in the US and Europe. A leader needs to navigate the ethical and logistical challenges of a workforce that's technologically integrated but legally informal.
Correct. And that brings us to the fifth imperative, which really challenges traditional corporate social responsibility or CSR thinking, promoting sustainability. This is often the most surprising connection for students.
You're talking about the specific role of waste pickers and recyclers.
Yes. Globally, informal waste pickers and recyclers play a monumental role in environmental sustainability. They recover a huge percentage of materials, plastics, metals, cardboard, that would otherwise go straight to landfills. They're performing resource conservation on a massive scale. Yet when large corporations create their CSR strategies, these informal actors are often ignored or treated as nuisances or even actively excluded from formal recycling chains.
So if a global beverage company is trying to meet its sustainability goals and they don't integrate the informal waste sector, they are missing their most effective partners on the ground.
They are missing the most effective, efficient, and experienced labor force for material recovery. Education must highlight their contribution and inspire leaders to design inclusive business practices, partnerships, payment schemes, formal integration that acknowledge and support the work these entrepreneurs are already doing.
To neglect them is to fundamentally undermine your own environmental goals.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for the institutions? This requires a massive shift. What do business schools need to do to close this glaring gap, to move from theory to actual implementation?
Well, the sources outline a pretty clear action plan. In terms of curriculum, schools need to mandate topics like the definition and scope of the informal economy. They need analysis of policy and regulation frameworks. How do different governments handle this? They need numerous case studies on the operations and innovation within informal enterprises, and specific modules on entrepreneurship and finance in these non-traditional contexts.
So it can't just be one optional elective course tucked away at the back of the catalog?
No, it has to be central. It must be interwoven throughout. Implementation should include specialized courses, yes, but the key is incorporating these topics into existing required core classes.
For example?
For example, global business strategy needs to factor in informal market competition. Sustainability classes must include informal recycling chains. Finance classes have to cover microfinance and tailored credit models.
And who should be teaching this? Do you need a whole new type of faculty?
You need collaboration. Schools have to stop teaching in a vacuum. They need to actively collaborate with NGOs, local policymakers, informal economy experts, the people with practical, on-the-ground insights. That's how you give students realistic, actionable knowledge.
And more research, I assume.
Critically, universities must encourage faculty and students to conduct research and develop comprehensive case studies focused on the informal sector, moving away from relying only on the same old Fortune 500 examples.
So the main takeaway is, it's undeniably clear. The informal economy is a massive, indispensable engine for billions of people. It provides livelihoods, goods, services to the majority of the world. And to keep ignoring it in graduate education is just. It's educational negligence. It limits our future leaders' ability to drive truly inclusive and sustainable global development. The world our graduates enter is primarily informal.
And that leads us to the important question we want to leave you, the listener, to consider. If 60% of the world's workforce operates informally, how might current corporate strategies and business models, which are designed exclusively for formal systems, actually hinder rather than help this vast majority of the world's workforce? Thinking through that challenge is really the first step toward building a truly global and equitable business future.
That's a powerful challenge. This entire deep dive came from insights shared on the Bus on a Dusty Road blog. It's an incredible resource for understanding global issues, travel, and economic awareness.
And if you enjoy this kind of in-depth exploration, where we synthesize critical information from multiple sources, you can listen to more discussions just like this one on our Dusty Roads podcast.
You can find the Dusty Roads podcast on all major podcast platforms. We release new deep dives every week. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to the A Bus on a Dusty Road YouTube channel for videos and information that support living life as a global citizen.
We really appreciate you joining us for this crucial conversation on the future of global business education.
Until next time.